Welcome to the Centers for Spiritual Living, Midtown Atlanta. Such is the nature of life that all it asks and all it wants is the opportunity to appear. And you are that opportunity, and so am I. And so it is. Whoever you are, whatever path brought you here today, please know that you are welcomed and celebrated. We know who you are. You are an individual expression of the divine life which we all live. We are life's opportunity to be someone unique and wonderful. Whatever your ethnic background, religious affiliation, however you know yourself and however you describe yourself, you are welcome to become a part of this community in whatever way serves you. Our vision is we are a strong, open, globally connected community centered on the clarity of principle through teaching, service, and practice. We create a safe, respectful environment that supports healthy spiritual growth. And now I'd like to share with you our declarations of principles as written by our founder, Ernest Holmes.
A few of the declaration of principles we live by.
I believe in one God, one absolute power, and first cause to all things.
I believe that this power is perfect love, and it creates out of a desire to express love.
I believe all thought is creative, and how I choose to think creates my personal experience.
I believe in the unity of all life, and the immortality of the individual soul forever unfolding.
I believe in the eternal goodness, the eternal loving kindness, and the eternal givingness of God to all.
And so it is.
So grateful, hey.
And so it is. So we have spiritual mind practitioners. A practitioner is someone who's demonstrated the ability to use spiritual practice and spiritual laws to bring about great changes in their lives. They've demonstrated that they know how to bring these changes about in others when asked. Licensed by Centers for Spiritual Living, they're available to provide you spiritual guidance and support in those areas where you're looking for assistance. You can contact them through our website, cslmidtown.org. And today we've got one of our amazingly wonderful practitioners to share good ideas and affirmative prayer spiritual mind treatment. Welcome, Maya Fuller.
Thank you, Vance. Greetings, CSL Midtown. Happy Sunday to you, dear friends. I have a question for you, and that is, I would like you to raise your hand to answer. Have you ever been told to visualize success or picture your dream life? Have you ever heard anybody say that we should visualize or picture our dream life? Great. Now, raise your hand if you've also heard of visioning and you're crystal clear on the difference between the two, visualization and visioning. Okay, I have a feeling that some of you did not raise your hand. So since both visualization and visioning are powerful processes that we talk about and use here at Centers for Spiritual Living, I'm going to describe the difference just to make sure we're all on the same page today and hopefully going forward. So visualization versus visioning. What's the difference? Between the spiritual practices of visualization and visioning, visualization is what most people are most familiar with. Visualization is when we use our imagination to consciously bring to mind an image. We can visualize a static image of an individual object. For example, I might say, visualize a bouquet of a dozen red roses. Or it could be a more active, moving scenario. In that case, I could say, see yourself walking up to the front door of your home one evening, just as the sun is beginning to set. And you notice a beautiful bouquet of a dozen red roses sitting at your doorstep. Your face breaks open into a smile with delight because you know exactly who these roses are from, and they're from someone who thinks you're wonderful. In this science of mind teaching, we recognize the creative power of our imagination. If we're looking to experience or manifest something in our lives, visualization is a technique we can use to bring that scenario or one just like it into existence on the physical plane. That's part of the fun of the process we call manifestation and demonstration, where our thoughts become things. For generations, visualization techniques have been widely taught throughout the New Thought movement. In fact, though he, of course, did not invent the practice of visualization, in Ernest Holmes' first edition of the Science of Mind book, which was published in 1927, he includes a section called How to Visualize, where he writes, "Visualization means mentally seeing things that you wish to have or to do. When you mentally see the things you desire and see them very clearly, you are presenting a universal mind with images of thought. And like the creative soil of the ground, universal mind at once tends to project those images into form." So that's visualization. Now, visioning is a totally different process. The spiritual process we refer to as visioning was developed more recently. Visioning, also known as the life visioning process, was created by Reverend Dr. Michael Bernard Beckwith back in the 1980s or 1990s, at a time when his organization, Agape, was part of what we now call our Centers for Spiritual Living. Agape used to be part of CSL. In the visioning process, instead of consciously deciding what we're going to imagine for the purpose of manifestation and demonstration, we shift to a receptive process. Instead of actively deciding what we're going to imagine, visioning is a process where we adopt a posture of receptivity and open ourselves to allow spirit to communicate with us. It's a practice of listening. It's tuning in, just like adjusting the dial on the radio to hear the still small voice of spirit. And lo and behold, the CSL Global Themes topic for today's talk, which we'll hear about from Reverend Dr. John Karn this morning, is titled The Still Small Voice, which is a term that comes from 1 Kings chapter 19, verse 12 in the Christian scriptures, the Bible. So, how does visioning work? Many of us New Thoughters have experienced visioning as a group process where we come together in one of our spiritual centers and set an intention, ask spirit a specific question or questions, and listen for the response. Often, visioning is done for a spiritual community or a project that the spiritual community is engaging with, where leadership gathers the insights from the group who are participating in the visioning process, and they use that information that comes from the visioning sessions to guide their decision making. But here's what's important to know. Visioning is also a personal practice. It's something you can do just like prayer, just like meditation. And while we can, of course, ask spirit anything, Michael Beckwith has set forth a series of widely used questions. So you'll normally hear some version of the following. Number one is usually something like, what is spirit's highest idea for my life? Or for this project, or for my career, etc. Whatever the topic you're visioning about or looking to receive guidance of spirit for. The next question is, what must I become in order for this vision to be made manifest? Then, what must I let go of? Then, what do I already have that can be in service to the vision? And then most times there's a final question of, is there anything else I need to know? And you're encouraged to write down what comes to you so you can retain the information, remember it, so that you can apply it in your life. So that is what we New Thoughters, CSLers, religious scientists mean when we say visioning. So as you see, visioning is a very different process from visualization. And why are we talking about this right now? Again, because visioning is a tool we use to help us tune in to the still small voice of our highest selves, which is our topic today. If this sparked something in you today and you'd like to go deeper, I highly recommend that you check out the Michael Beckwith's book, Life Visioning, a transformative process for activating your unique gifts and highest potential. It's a fantastic resource. And if you want to experience visioning for yourself, Reverend Robert Brzezinski, who came and spoke at CSL Midtown the week before last, he hosts a guided visioning session via Zoom every fourth Friday. He invites you to just email him at info@nt, as in new thought, media.org to sign up. That's info@ntmedia.org. There are also guided visioning sessions available to you on YouTube for you to engage in at your own personal convenience. So, to recap the difference between visualization and visioning, think of visualization like ordering at a restaurant. You're picking up exactly what you want off the menu. You have a clear picture. I want the pasta with extra Parmesan cheese and maybe some garlic bread on the side. That's how visualization works. You are deciding and picturing exactly what you want. And visioning is like being invited into the kitchen and asking the chef, who happens to be the divine in the case of visioning, what is the most nourishing, fulfilling meal for me right now? You're not placing an order. You're receiving guidance about what's best for you, even if it's not what you originally had in mind. So that's it. But before we end this segment, raise your hand if you can tell me the difference between the spiritual practices of visualization and visioning. Excellent. And now we're about to hear an incredible message on the still small voice from Reverend Dr. John Karn. But before we move into this message, let's take a moment to center ourselves in spiritual mind treatment. So I invite you to close your eyes, to take a deep breath, slowly release it, settle in your seat, and let yourself settle into this moment, releasing any distractions, any tension, any noise from the outside world. Right here, right now, we turn inward to the sacred presence that's always here. I'm going to recite this treatment in the first person, and I invite you to receive the words that resonate with you. Just giving thanks right now that I know that there is one infinite presence, an eternal, boundless intelligence that moves through all life. This presence is not distant or separate, but as close as my own breath, nearer than my own heartbeat. It is the essence of wisdom, peace, and clarity itself. And because its presence is everywhere, it is within me, right now and always. It speaks not in shouts or demands, but in the quiet knowing, in the subtle nudge, in the peace that surpasses understanding. I'm one with this divine wisdom, and it is always guiding me. So today, I declare that I am open and receptive to the still small voice of spirit. I release the chatter of doubt, the noise of worry, and the distractions of the world. I make space in my heart, in my mind, and in my spirit for divine clarity. I trust that spirit speaks to me in ways that I can understand, whether through an insight, an inner calm, or a deep knowing. I hear and I recognize divine guidance. I embrace stillness not as emptiness, but as fullness, the fullness of divine presence. I trust that I am guided in all things. And as I listen with faith and expectancy, I am led to right action in divine timing and with perfect clarity. And in this moment, I extend this prayer beyond myself, affirming that each person in this sacred gathering, in my city, in my state, in this country, and in this world is also divinely guided. Each one of us is tuned into the wisdom of spirit, open to hearing, knowing, and following divine direction in our lives. And so it is with a heart full of gratitude that I release this word into the infinite law, knowing that it is already done. I trust, I listen, and I am at peace. And so it is. Thank you.
Welcome back. And it's my pleasure to introduce our speaker this morning. Dr. John is an ordained religious science minister and teacher of Science of Mind principles, both in person and via Zoom for the Emerson Theological Institute students where he's on the faculty. He's a CPE certified hospice chaplain through Centers for Spiritual Living and a religious science practitioner through CSL as well. He has a long history of New Thought in Eastern traditions. He presently serves on the board of directors of the Emerson New Thought Center. He's a founding member of the Three Mountain Zen, a new Zen study group and practice in Atlanta, along with the Japanese named leader Fusatsu, aka April Jessup Cersei. His passion to serve as a disenfranchised, whether they are four-legged, two-legged, cast out by society in any way. John's message to all is that you are an extension of the divine, and as such, you are greatly loved. Welcome, Dr. John Karn.
Thank you, Vance, and thank you, Maya. My goodness, we are talking about visioning versus visualization today. And I think that's a perfect demonstration of how one person hears a still small voice and someone else hears it and someone else hears it. And we all put those down on paper and we say, oh yeah, that book, that's the exact book I wanted to talk about. Yeah, that's the exact process I want to talk about. So you are going to hear about that again. All right. Well, I thanked Maya for her opening. I'm grateful that she's here, and I'm grateful that she and I are on the exact same page today. And I have a joke for you to open our talk. A stranger approached a pastor and said, I'd like you to pray for my hearing. And so the pastor put his hands on each ear, both ears, and he got his thumbs way down into the canal. And he gave a passionate, earnest prayer. Then he popped his fingers out of the guy's ear canal, and he said, how's your hearing now? And surprised, the man said, well, it's not till tomorrow. So we'll let that be. I thought it was cute. Today, we're talking about the still small voice within. And we all have it. It's part of our original factory settings. It's about guidance or intuition. In New Thought, we're taught that intuition is actually messages. Messages come from angels, and evangelicals will tell you this intuition is the voice of God. And when you think about it, it's all God, no matter how we label it. And being in touch with that voice gives you the chance to step up in life. One of my favorite spiritual maverick stories is about Mother Teresa. I went to a talk by a CNN photojournalist who had lived on site with her for about 4 years and had unparalleled access to her. She said that, of course, we all know this, Mother Teresa had been a school teacher in Romania, and then she was promoted to the principal position. She had done that for her entire adult life. And she had a dream that Jesus was speaking to her, telling her to go to Calcutta. The Catholic hierarchy didn't want her to do that. She was known for being the teacher and the principal. They wanted to keep her in that box. But she knew something better. She followed that still small voice, and she went to Calcutta. And when she got to India, the only thing she knew how to do was teach school. So she started teaching it in the streets, using the sand as a chalkboard to write her messages. And so what she did essentially was she took a step in faith. She followed the still small voice. She asked, what's the next step? And what's the next step? And what's the next step? And before you knew it, she was telling the government to give her different buildings that were no longer in use. And these people were giving her the buildings. We also know of Michael Beckwith, who Maya spoke with about just a while ago. He has a mega church called Agape in Los Angeles. He's actually from this area, Atlanta area, or at least he went to college here. He is what we call a Morehouse man. Which is a very distinguished graduate of Morehouse. When he got to LA, he and those close to him did a practice called visioning for 6 months before they opened the doors. And you can see what a huge success Agape has been. They all listened for that inner voice. They all wrote down the answers on a piece of paper with the facilitator. And the answer to the question that was a yes 4 times versus a no or versus something else is the one they decide was the still inner voice. And so that's how they pulled that forth. They put it onto a board and they wrote their mission from there. New Thought churches do this probably every few years as the board changes out, and they set themselves up for the next session. Now, I don't know about you guys, but I have an inner sassy voice. And it goes off in my mind almost every day. Now, I know it's not the truth. It's just a smart remark that pops in. And I have to take myself through it and think about it and think, is saying that thought going to be for the better of other people today? Will it be of any use to me? What will it do to me, expressing that thought? And as you do this more and more and more, those thoughts diminish and decrease and decrease and decrease because we're creating new neural pathways where my baseline is going to be something positive rather than something negative. And what about the ego? A lot of us talk about the ego, and sassy voice would fall into that area, but the ego is not taking you somewhere beneficial. The ego is an aspect of yourself resisting spiritual growth. And so as an example of this, I was teaching a class and I had a student stand up and tell us her lifelong problem. She had been with a woman who eventually left her, took everything with her, somehow threw her out of the house, and she lost the house. It was repossessed, foreclosed on. She lost her job. She lost the ability to be able to go to school. She lost some money. And as in any New Thought class, everyone was throwing suggestions at her. And she became fairly upset over a few different classes as we progressed because she said, well, this happened 25 years ago, but it's still causing me problems right now. And so in her mind, that meant this is a current issue. And we know spiritual mind or spiritual law doesn't care what you put in it. It's just creating the information you're giving it. So she's getting lots and lots of life experiences that further cement into her mind that this is her life now and it's never going to get better. We have to rebuild the neural pathways again to be a better, kinder first response. And kinder to who? To ourselves. If there's an argument going on in your mind, you're unable to hear the still small voice. Ralph Waldo Emerson famously said, "Get your bloated nothingness out of the way of divine circuits." In today's language, we would say, get out of God's way. The good news is that it's ours to handle. We don't have to ask anyone else. We can do this on our own. And of course, that's why we have ministers and practitioners who would also love to help you and watch you overcome something in your life. We do this for each other. You may not know that. We're experienced enough to reach out and ask for a lift, like from Maya. And we help each other, and we get really good results. Michael Beckwith says that the still small voice is not just a gentle whisper, but a constant, intuitive presence that leads us towards our highest good and our spiritual growth. It is the voice of intuition, inspiration, the divine within, and it's always guiding us, even if we don't always recognize it. This voice is part of our deeper, true nature, and learning to listen to it is a key part of spiritual practice. He also touches on external distractions, fears, and the ego can cloud our ability to hear this voice. Those external distractions and the voice of fear is the ego. When we listen instead to the still small voice, we step out of the noise of the world and the chatter of the mind, and this often leads us to a deeper understanding of who we truly are and what our next steps should be. And in this teaching, we say, treat and move your feet. Well, where do you go? You've done the treatment, so the next step will be in your awareness soon. In fact, it's already out there waiting for you to see it, to feel it, and to hear it. And I'm told that the prayer, the next treatment should be, let me see it. What is mine to do right here and right now? Give me the next step. And I always like to wrap that up with the light is on, the path is made clear, and I step out now in faith. So divine guidance is always available to us, and yet it requires stillness and inner quiet to hear clearly. So are your thoughts taking a break? Is there any time to slip in a period of silence? I have a colleague by the name of Martha Creek, who is from Bug Tussle, Kentucky. And in her wisdom, she says that God is in between the words. That is so good that I have to repeat it. God is in between the words. That's a keeper. So this helps you remember, let's get silent. I want to hear God, my higher self. So how much time are you thinking now nonstop? We have Western minds, and we are now living in the instant information age. And that's a bad combination, actually. We can read the news on our iPhones or our smartphones over and over every day. And it updates frequently, and the story varies a little bit if you wait 10 minutes and check it again. It can leave us absolutely drained. We have to take a breath and step away from the phone, put it down, step away, leave that tablet down too, and don't look at the laptop. Step away, resume your spiritual practice, and keep your day going well, nicely under control, blessed and uplifting. That's the kind of day I want to have. And besides that, when I hear the still small voice, I've created space for that voice to come through, right? And so my day's automatically going to be better. I'm being gifted with what to do next and how to handle this or that. So in this Western culture, instant information age, I have found that my attention span, if I'm not paying attention, is shrinking to seconds. If an article or a social media post is too long, I toss it aside. Those old ways of speaking with a really long article you might see on Facebook don't serve us anymore. We have to catch someone's attention in the audience within 8 seconds or we've lost that person. Now, I know that I'm not the only person that has dealt with this instant information addiction issue. As my dear friend, Reverend Susan Zoller would say, I'm not saying you guys are doing this, but perhaps someone you know is doing this. Vance and I have access to a beach house through a long extended, through the family member. And it's one of the few places I can go where I can travel with my dogs. So, I'm all over about visiting this house. A few years back, I vowed not to check the news and to stay off social media for the week that I was there. I found out that it was very calming, very peaceful. It was really great. And when you listen to the sound of the surf, it is loud enough that it drowns out the voices in your mind, and your baseline is at a very positive place. One time I had to do a talk halfway through the week for a graduating class of students in Arizona, and I was able to write an amazing talk, the entire thing within 30 minutes. And normally it takes days to write a talk. You work on it all week. And it was a beautiful talk. And so that's a really good example of how clearing out your mind can help. Now let's give silence a little more attention. Have you done silence as a spiritual practice? When we teach foundations, it's a spiritual practice you're given to go home and try for a week. And I have found that it's really important, especially in the instant information age, to have some silent time. Now I get in the car, and as I'm about to click on the radio out of habit or plug in my phone and get a podcast, I'm recognizing that, I was hearing nothing but sound, working on something, listening to something, checking the news. And here I am getting in my car, and I'm about to put on more sound. So that's when we need to stop, and probably stop before then, and have a period of silence. Drive in the silence. It's perfectly fine. Spiritual podcasts can be uplifting as well, but if you're needing silence, you need silence. And it should be something you practice every day. We can do meditation and then guide it to a point, but then go into the silence and spend time there. And that can help us get back to our original factory settings. I encourage you to sit at least 2 times a day and be in the silence. And what I'm seeing is that when we have this information deluge, it is starting as soon as we put down our daily reading. We get all the way through our daily reading, get ready to go to work, and we stop and check the emails and we check the headlines. So we have to be intentional. If we must, you can look at the headlines from your smartphone, from the swipe the downward way so that you can see the headlines, but you're not opening the news. You don't want to get the picture with it because that's when they get you. And you have to remember that the news gets paid by their advertisers by getting your attention in some outrageous way, in a way that draws you in and you're not able to back out. So they want you to look. They want your eyes in the story. And it's completely without concern about how your mental health is that day. So I'm very selective about which articles I will read, and I make sure that I get to the evening before I look at that. That way I am efficient at my work, and I'm doing a better job for my employer. Now, we're seeing in the news right now with the Trump presidency, it's like a reality show. And what I'd like to share is that when he was president before this time, before we knew how he would be a president or his techniques, he would make a statement that he's going to do something. Then there would be a whole lot of news around that. And it had not yet happened. It's what's he thinking about? What's he going to do? What is going to come of that? And then what's going to happen next? And we get caught up in that, and then the thing never happens. Or like, as we saw this past week, some things happened, but then they were dialed back, and some other things did not happen. And I heard on the radio, or yeah, I'm pretty sure on the radio and maybe in the podcast, wanting to bring you in and talk about that. Well, that doesn't help me. That doesn't help me at all. And it doesn't help you. The best thing we can do is ignore that. If something happens, we can tune into it. What would be helpful to me is to turn away from that. It's not going to help me. Give money or support to those organizations that you believe in, and you believe they will be long lasting and they're not going to squander your money. And you can be on either side of this. And it's good advice, no matter how you look at that. Give to the causes you believe in, give to the causes you think will be most effective. And don't give your attention to news outlets that are just trying to bring you in for ratings for their advertisers. You'll hear Donald Trump also talk about ratings. So he knows, he's very self-aware, and he knows the process. In The Infinite Way by Joel Goldstein, he says that man is not able to enjoy the fruits of the kingdom for the reason that he has not prepared the atmosphere within himself, which can receive the still small voice. So let me say that again. Man is not able to enjoy the fruits of the kingdom for the reason that he has not prepared the atmosphere within himself, which can receive the still small voice. So what are some techniques we can use to help prepare the atmosphere within us so that we can hear the still small voice? Going back to Michael Bethwick's book on visioning, he says that he encourages individuals to create space for inner stillness through practices like meditation, prayer, and mindfulness. In this stillness, we can hear the voice of divine wisdom, and it offers guidance in every aspect of our lives. I believe that when we are in alignment with this voice, we experience greater clarity, greater peace, and a sense of purpose. A gratitude practice also is said to clear the way for your good to come through. By practicing the stillness and being open to that voice of spirit, we can tap into a higher level of wisdom and understanding. Our call to action this week is to work on our daily spiritual practice and perhaps honor a few practices that you've set aside for a while, such as actively being in silence, spending time visioning, spending time visualize, and that's where you see it as done. Spend time in meditation, spend time listening to the surf. And yes, I found the surf on YouTube as well. It helps. When we have to be willing to do the spiritual work to clear the way for that voice to come through and fill it as well. It's always accurate. It never lets you down. It lets us forget about us and them. Remember, if we are in us and them, we are out of spiritual alignment. Let us all know each other as part of ourselves and forgive ourselves for the stress that is out there. I'll say that again. Let us forgive ourselves for the stress that is out there. We have something to do without being out in front of us, and that's a tough one to work on, but it's the truth. Our affirmation for the week is, I am guided by the still small voice within me, and this is my truth, and this is your truth, and so it is. Amen, amen, amen. Mr. Vance?
Mute. There we go. Thank you, Reverend Dr. John Karn. Little minor technical difficulties this morning, but we got through them. Thank you so much for that talk this morning. And it's now our time for our conscious giving. So if you would with me, you can give at cslmidtown.org/donate. There will be a QR code that shows up on the screen right now. And you can set up a one-time donation or an ongoing donation, whatever works for you with your spiritual giving plan. Say with me our affirmation of prosperity. I live in a universe of abundance. As I freely and joyfully give, I join in the divine flow, and all that I share with life returns to me multiplied abundantly. And so it is. So I had a couple of announcements. One that's not on the sheet is what John and Maya were talking about on the 22nd, which is a Saturday morning from 9:30 until 12:30. We like everybody in the congregation that can to join us for what's the beginning of our co-creation process, which is visioning. That whole process they talked about is what we're going to participate in. And we would like everyone to join us there for that. It's going to be what's going to lead us into what is the next version of Centers for Spiritual Living Midtown. And next week we have Reverend Deb Hammond, and I got it. I lost it. I'm curious about that topic. And every Sunday at 10 a.m. on our Zoom channel, we have the discussion group, and they're going through the Science of Mind textbook. So if you are interested in that, please join them at 10 a.m. Our Zoom channel is on our website, cslmidtown.org. Scroll down to the very bottom, and you can get there from that. And the same reason for our upcoming discussion with Reverend Dr. John Karn after this. Come to the Zoom if you're not already there, and we'll have a discussion. So now we can do our affirmation of life. I leave this place now knowing something better than I knew before. I go forth into the world with a heart full of love and a mind full of good sense. I look at the world in a greater way, knowing that I have within me everything I need to create the life I desire. I give thanks for this understanding, and I am grateful for the spirit of life that lives through me. And so it is. Have a great week, everybody, and we'll see you on Zoom.